right. It's almost the weekend. We're back.
It is almost the weekend. I am Joe Sorefoot Tool coming to you live. Not live at all. Pre-recorded, in fact.
Pre-recorded. You're live for me, though.
Yes, coming to you live.
It's a very personal introduction.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. So, apart from your sore foot, how's stuff?
Well, I'm joined by Darian, of course.
Yeah, of course. That's who I am. Sorry. I
Yes,
totally
yes.
forgot to introduce myself.
Do you have a supplementive to go with your name?
Godskin Apostle Darian.
Godskin Apostle. I always thought that the two words next to each other, Godskin, were so gross.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. And
Yeah.
I mean, like, the Godskin enemies in Elden Ring are kind of gross. Like,
Yeah, they are.
the fat one is
Yeah.
pretty disgusting to look at,
Yeah.
really.
He like inflates or whatever in his second phase. It's real gross.
Yeah, there's something body horror-y about instant bloating of
Oh yeah.
human forms. I'm not
Yeah.
not across it. I don't like it.
There's a video. I can't remember where I saw it, but there's this video of this dude playing the trumpet, and his neck inflates when he blows into the trumpet in a really weird way.
Oh no.
And I was reminded of that guy from the Godskin duo. Anyway, it was T minus like 7 seconds before we started talking about Elden Ring in this podcast. So I think that's on some bingo card somewhere. Someone's just won something.
Yeah, look, we're counting down the weeks until we spoil it all. How far along are you, by the way?
Oh, I've played none. I haven't played it at all. Game's dead to me. No, I do want to play more today. I've got the house to myself, and
Oh, cool.
I'm almost done with freelance, so I'm gonna chuck a couple of freelance hours in after this, and then I'm gonna chuck a couple Elden Ring filthy Gamer Boy hours in.
Hell yeah.
And see how that goes.
Nice.
Have you been playing anything this week?
Yeah, I've been back into Disco Elysium,
Oh,
and
fuck yeah.
oh my god, I just love everything about that game.
Yeah, hell yeah. What an
Except
amazing-
the controls. The port is terrible to
Oh, no.
Nintendo Switch. It's
Oh
like,
yeah, of course. What the fuck? Oh my god. For some reason I thought you were on the Mac.
no, it's much more annoying for me to like try and play a game on a computer because you've got to sit up and like use a mouse or
Yeah.
keyboard. Like it's a lot easier for me to use like play on the Switch or any console really.
Bro, what about, do you have a clear white roof?
No, it is a very patterned wooden roof with
Lame.
lots of blemishes.
Yeah, I was gonna say you could get one of those. They're like $100. You just get a projector and you shoot it at the ceiling and then plug whatever you want into it.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, no, unfortunately, that is not an option right now.
Yeah.
But look,
tell me more.
despite the poor controls and the laggy port and all that crap, I still love it. Like it's so fascinating. Like everything in that world, every character, all the politics, the world itself is insane. Like I've just got to this part where I'm, because poor Harry is just amnesiaed as hell. He doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know who he is, where he lives, if he even lives anywhere.
Yeah.
And so with that context, you ask people about the world, and the world is so interesting. Like it's just so creative.
How I never finished it, but I have a feeling you probably aren't as far as me. Maybe not though. What have you just done?
I've just taken the body down from the tree.
Nice. Yep. Cool.
Yep. And that was really fun. Because I saw Phoebe play up until this point, and because I've gone a completely different route with my stats, it's been so different.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, like I don't know if you remember the the big strong man called Measurehead who like stops you
Yes.
from progressing. Yeah,
Yes.
she had to like buy into his fascist eugenics bullshit
Yeah.
to get
To be
through.
able to like get through, yeah.
Yeah, and I was able to fly kick him in the face.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
Uh,
oh God, yeah, it's so fun, man. It's
yeah,
just
yeah.
so good. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I've been playing that, and I started playing The Evil Within again.
Oh,
Uh,
sick, dude. Oh my god, that's a callback and a half to the
the
Double Jaguar channel.
yeah, throwback.
Yeah, huge
Um,
throwback.
I just I usually like to have two games going, one on a Switch where I can just pick it up and be playing in
Mm,
like 2 seconds, and one that's maybe a little bit more actiony that I can play
mm.
on the TV. And man, The Evil Within is so good. I mean, it's one of those games where I have a huge soft spot for it, but it's not for everyone. But the
Yeah.
the beauty of The Evil Within is it shows you exactly what it is straight away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like within 5 minutes, you're running from a chainsaw swinging madman,
Yeah.
and the voice acting is atrocious, and the movement is really slow. Like
Yeah.
you walk at a snail's pace, and all the enemies are a lot faster.
Yeah.
But the whole world is designed around your movement and the enemy's movement, and it's just I love it. I'm having such a great time.
Did you ever play the Resident Evil games?
Um, I actually haven't. I haven't played
Yeah.
any of them.
Wow.
Like I know about them, and for some reason I've seen a lot of them. Maybe like way back in
Oh,
the day, the Game Grumps played them or something like
yeah.
that. Oh, and we played
We
Resident
did
Evil
play.
7. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes. Yeah, we
yeah,
played that together.
yeah. And that was really fun. I really
Yeah.
liked that game. That game had
Yeah.
some grotty moments in it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. Whenever the Resident Evil series does first person, it always ends up real gross. Like
Y-
real gross. Like
Yeah.
in the third person, they have like some kind of off themes, but when they go first person, they're just like, oh, you know what? This is this is everything you've had nightmares about in your
Yeah.
history ever.
Yeah. But yeah, I love that game just for the fact we pretty much played it in one night. Like
Yeah.
you came over and we just played it for like 10 hours straight or something.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love that. I really like those games for that reason. You know, like you can sit down with them and really just like chonk through them. It's not like
Mm.
a that's what I did with whatever the most recent one was. That was also first person. I sat down in like 3 or 4 sessions and just smashed it out.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that one looks really interesting. I've heard good things.
Yeah, that one has Oh, look, maybe we'll do an episode about the Resident Evil series at some stage, but yeah, that one has really weird pacing where like the first zone is like really rich and interesting and like fleshed out with the Lady Demetrescu, big mummy milkers queen vampire lady
Uh-huh.
is
Uh-huh.
like the first one. You've probably seen her on the internet,
Oh,
right? You saw
definitely.
Lady.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's like the only thing I know about that game.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's kind of for the most part the most interesting villain in the whole game, and then you're done with her in the first like hour and a half, 2 hours if you're gone like
Oh,
quick.
really? Interesting.
Yeah, and then there's just the other villains who you meet at the start of the game as well that you face off against. It's basically the same as Seven. You know, there's like
Mm-hmm.
the dad and the mom and the grandma and the sister, and you fight them all.
Mm,
It's a similar concept, but a little bit different this time around.
right. Oh, well, that's good they're playing with it because like
Yeah,
I loved the Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibe of the seventh one.
yeah, yeah. I agree.
And it,
This one is a bit of a departure from that vibe. It's more, I don't know how to describe it, mythical,
ooh,
fantasy even.
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I mean that's really attractive. And the Evil Within is kind of similar, I guess. Like
mm,
the pacing is amazing the whole way through, but it just doesn't let up on its originality and creativity. I
yeah,
feel you often have no idea what's going to happen next, and
yeah,
because the game takes place literally in someone else's brain. There are no rules. Like,
Yeah, shit just happens.
shit just happens, and it's just fun the whole way through.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember really enjoying that game. We played through it for a little bit together, and then you went and finished it on your own, and
Yeah, well,
I never finished it.
I remember like having a ball playing it with you, and then
Mm.
like something happened and we couldn't get together, and I just wanted to
Yeah,
play it
you wanted to
so
play
bad.
it. Look, there's an alternative universe out there somewhere where we still have the YouTube channel popping, and we finished that game series, and there's like a whole other, like
Oh my
where
god.
we that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I would love to play through it again.
Yeah, well,
Check it out some nice timeless ones.
I can lend it to you when I'm done.
I think I've still got. I don't know. I'll have to see. I might have traded it a long
I,
time
I'm
ago.
I mean it's like $5
Oh yeah,
on just about any store. It's very
yeah.
cheap.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you don't need to load it to me. It's okay. Thank you though. Very good.
What about you, dude? Have you been playing anything, or has it just been freelance land?
No, I've been playing Dead Cells actually.
Oh, yes. Tell me about it. What do you
Yes.
think?
So it's an incredible video game. It's got a lot going for it. There's a lot of really cool things that it does.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm really like smitten with the systems and how they all interlink with one another. And
Mm.
I'm a little bit hazy on a couple of things. So there's this. The first thing is, you know how you have like your starter sword and shield, or the bow and shield that's
Uh-huh.
waiting for you.
Yeah.
Does that ever change?
Yeah. So the way that game starts looks very different from like once you're maybe, I don't know, 20 or 30 hours in.
Uh,
So you basically unlock it's been such a long time ago
mm,
since I've unlocked that stuff that I can't remember exactly what it is, but you either do challenges or you get runes or you do something, and basically it changes the weapons that are available to you at the start. So
okay.
as you unlock weapons and then unlock how good the weapons are, because like the weapons have their own scaling system. Like I'm at the point now, and I've been at that point for a very long time, where when I start a run, I've got three weapons to choose from at the start, and they can be literally any of the weapons in the game.
Oh, right. Okay.
So it really, it changes things up substantially between runs.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So I wasn't sure because I've been like unlocking weapons with like putting cells into them, and then they like
Mhm.
appear in the jars or whatever. I'm like, I don't know what these. I don't know how to get them down. Like I keep jumping at them, and I'm like, I don't
Oh,
know. This is clearly not what I'm supposed to do.
yeah, no, the weapons in the jars are just like a visual representation of how many weapons you've
Yeah.
got to find in the game.
Yeah. Right. That makes sense. But yeah, and then there's like a. I think I know the challenge place to go to make
Right.
them appear. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that either. And then the other thing. And this was probably just more of a gripe that I had with it, not like a question. But like I
Hmm.
was playing last night and I had a really good weapon, and like the synergy was really cool. Like it was like a weapon that did like heaps more percent damage to anything that was frozen,
Hmm.
and I had a really good freezing ability. And like
Hell yeah.
when they died, they like lit on fire and all sorts of stuff. There was all like really cool things going on.
Yeah.
And and then I like found this chest and it was speaking to me, and maybe the chest tells you, but I didn't stick around long enough to hear it. But it basically like cursed me so that I took one hit and died.
Yeah.
Or I had to kill 10 enemies. And I was
Yeah.
like, if I had known that before opening the chest, which didn't even really give me a worthy item, I wouldn't have opened the chest. And then I went and like, this is where the gripe is. It's not necessarily with that part, but it's with the hitboxes of some of the enemies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, some enemies, the one that killed me didn't have a wind up and the hitbox wasn't apparent. I approached it from behind and I don't even know how it hit me. It just like
Mm,
I just died and I was like, this is shit. Like I didn't have any chance to like read the wind up or like see any
right.
effects go off before I died. And I was like, okay, well this is not a good moment in the game for me.
Yeah. I mean, the cursed chests are really like when you're trying to beat the final boss, all those chests end up being really useful. Not for
Yeah.
the weapon, but because of the extra scroll.
Right.
Because throughout the run you might come across, 4 or 5 cursed chests, and like that 4 or 5 scrolls is a huge increase to your damage,
Right. Yeah.
and health. But if you're unfamiliar with like enemy move sets or anything like that, opening those cursed chests will be really bad. But
Yeah. I was
it
in a zone I hadn't been in before as well, or like had been in for like a short period of time.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, that's I mean, it's once you know what's inside a cursed chest, like you can make that decision a little bit, like it's a clearer decision for you later on. But
Yeah.
the first time you open one, like, the chest is just taunting you, saying I'm a naughty chest
Yeah.
or
Yeah. It was
whatever.
like hit me, and I was trying to attack it, and I was like, this is nothing.
Yeah. And then once you open it, then like the game pauses and it says one hit and you're dead.
Yeah. I wish
Um,
I had a chance to like not do that.
yeah, no,
It just
I
threw
mean,
me out.
it's kind of like Dark Souls in that way. Like
Yeah.
you have to interact with things to learn how they operate. It
Yeah.
doesn't really.
I just wish I wasn't having such a good run when that happened.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, this is good. I'm gonna get further than I got last time. I was like, had good momentum. I'd barely used any healing items, like barely taken a hit at all. And I was like, oh, I guess maybe it won't be that bad. And then I came across that random enemy, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm dead now. Like, this sucks. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but I'm not done with it or anything. I just like thought that was such a really in a game that like really wants you to play it, like that game at every chance is just like play me, like here's a system to like help you out. Here's some cool rules, like, and if you read this thing you'll learn more about this, and there's like shout outs to other games and references and all sorts of stuff. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
hell yeah, it's a real gamer's game.
Yeah.
And that moment I was just like, oh, you just asked me to not play you, like you just wanted me to put you down at this very moment. This is the opposite of what you've been doing so far.
Yeah, yeah. Oh well, let me know if you get back in, and if you get around it, because that's, there are a couple of like end game mechanics that are really harsh. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
like it's,
Oh yeah.
the beginner's introduction to that game is really good. Like they kind of get you addicted before
Yeah.
they show you how difficult the game actually is.
Yeah. 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 There's some like really strong, just random enemies around as well that like chunk my health real hard. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like now I got to really watch out for those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's totally got that like Dark Souls learning the move sets and the spacing,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah.
it's like one of those games that's easy to have fun with and hard to master.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. But yeah, I've been playing that a little bit on the train. And I think that's all I've really been playing. A little bit of Hunt here and there, but the event is over, so yeah, it's I have to wait until the next event comes along to really get my Hunt grind on again, I think.
Yeah, cool. Oh, did you manage to pick up any DLC for Dead Cells?
No, I haven't done that yet. Should I do that while I'm playing or after I finish a certain point, or?
Oh, I mean, it's up to you. Like the DLC adds biomes really early on and later on. Like it just, it adds content for no matter where you are in the
Oh,
game,
cool.
really.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's there in a way that's kind of similar to Dark Souls, in that it's
Yeah.
just native to the world. And
Yeah.
once you've bought it, suddenly you might see the name of a biome that you are unfamiliar with.
Yeah. Yeah, sick. I've come across 2 of them so far. And I was like, you gotta have DLC to do this. That's cool. Speaking of DLC,
Wah, wah, wah.
the fucking Doom song, the Dune songs. Did you watch Dune, the
Uh,
movie, the new one?
no. Well, I haven't
Okay.
been able to get to the cinema for a really long time, but I'm
Oh
I'm
yeah,
keen
yeah,
on it. I'm keen on it.
yeah, yeah. It was cool. I liked it. It had some Hans Zimmer wailing in the Dune section. They're like, hey, yeah, like they're doing the whole like desert thing. Yeah,
Yeah, sick.
yeah. I don't know. But yeah, the topic this week is DLC.
Hell yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about DLC because we went over No Man's Sky last week, and I was just like, fuck, that is such a good story of like a game that came out that was half baked, empty promises.
Yeah.
It was just not enough of a game. And then over the years, they've just added and added. And still, you mentioned last week that they recently added something new.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible that they're continually adding more stuff. And now it's better than the game that they talked up initially.
Yeah. Yeah. It's more than the things that they had originally pitched.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I loved that that was possible with DLC, but
Mm.
I also love that they have released all of it for free.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's completely true for the like entire length of how long the game has been out, but ever since I bought it for like $20 a couple of years ago, all the DLC's just been free to download, and that's just amazing.
Yeah. As far as I know as well, all of the DLC has been free. As soon as you like boot up the game, it just automatically updates and gives you the latest version of the game, which includes all of the DLC.
Mm.
I don't know how you access this. This is kind of part of the topic, you know. It's like, say you haven't played No Man's Sky since it came out, and you returned it or whatever, and you hear that it's really good, and you go pick it up again, and you plug it into your PlayStation machine, off you go. It's like, well, how do you know what's new? You know, like that game, you know, like the Living Ships update doesn't come along until like 30 hours in or something, until you're able to like have the resources to do that stuff, or like, you know, there's all sorts of things that are in the different DLC packs that you may not even know about while you're playing them. You may not be aware that something's DLC or not, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's all sorts of stuff.
We've kind of touched on this before with FromSoft games, where
Hmm.
they will create content like Canehurst Castle in Bloodborne that is super obscure and hard to find, and a lot of first-time players will miss it. And I feel like a lot of games have DLC like that.
Mm.
Unless it's the kind of game where you played it, beat it, and then you're actively waiting for the DLC to come out.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and in that case, it's usually kind of, like Witcher 3 had story DLC that was really,
yes,
really strong. The Evil Within actually has fantastic DLC.
really,
Oh yeah, really good. They had three story packs, and the first two you play as Kidman, who
mm.
is like a junior detective that was in the back of the car at the start,
Yeah, yeah,
and there's like all new designs, and you're actually playing in parallel with the main story. And
right,
the reason some of the weird shit happens in the main story is because Kidman's in the background pulling the strings, and in the
right.
DLC you get to do all that stuff, and it was,
That's awesome.
yeah, it was really cool, and again, just like so creative.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
it's awesome to see when games that may not necessarily have had the DLC as so like in the case of Evil Within, to me, that reads as they had that as part of the original core game, and then at a certain point in production they had to say this is not going to be feasible for us to include this in the game. We're cutting it. And then after the game released and the publisher has given them more money and they've made money from sales or the success of the game or whatever, they've been like, okay, you know, we now have space and time in the production to be able to like add this in. It'll
yeah.
be maybe not as intended, whereas in the intended might have been you play a little bit of main character, then you play a little bit of Kidman, and then you go back to the main. You know, like maybe that was the intended original way to play the full game, but the way that it comes out is kind of unique now as a result.
Yeah, it does make you think, because the full game is complete on its own. Like
Totally, yeah.
it doesn't feel like anything's missing, but
Yes.
when you compare it to a game like Star Wars Battlefront, right? Where
Mm.
not the old ones, but like the new EA ones.
Mm.
Like that first Star Wars Battlefront came out with 4 maps and no single player. And it feels crazy to me that that was a complete game for them, and then they started pumping out the DLC.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and honestly, I don't know specifically what the DLC was. I'm sure it was more maps and more weapons or whatever, but like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's weird how different studios, and I don't know if it's like the direction or the budget that plays this big part, where
Mm,
there's this base game that that the developers think they have,
mm-hmm.
and the budget or the way the project is tracking determines that things need to be cut. Some
Yeah.
games like The Evil Within just feel complete and then some,
Yes.
versus Star Wars Battlefront that feels like half a game, or
Yeah.
like it feels like it should be in early access.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it could be a bit of that as well, right? Like, it could have been, in the case of Evil Within, they might have had been playing the game, and maybe it wasn't like an issue with production or funds or anything. They were just like, oh, you know what? All of this content is actually too much for this particular title. You
Mm,
know, like, we're going to have
yeah.
to find a way to put it somewhere else, and then we're going to do it as DLC and polish it up and make it real nice. You know, like that
Mm,
might have been the better way to do it. But yeah, a lot of games, the Street Fighter, I think 5, when it came out, it had like a tiny roster and like a couple of maps, and it was like, what? This isn't a full and complete game. And the same with Star Wars Battlefront or whatever it was. Like,
mm,
they released these games with like basically like a games as a service style roadmap.
mhm,
Like they say, oh, we're going to release XYZ characters, XYZ content over this period of time, and
mm.
keep playing, and you'll get to experience them eventually. It's like, oh, not it sort of is a little bit there's good sides and bad sides with that. It's like, on one hand, if you're really enjoying the content and you are like, the base game that's there is good and you like it, then the bonus content is like, oh, cool, that's nice.
Mm.
But if there's not much there to begin with, then you sort of hit this point where it's like, oh man, there's actually not enough game here for me to engage with in the first place, and so anything that comes down the pike later is like not worth it for me. Like, I've already clocked out of this experience.
Yeah, well, it's a weird concept for marketing to get around as well, because games have like a couple of release types now. Like,
Mm,
there's the initial release, like the standard game, and then there's DLC 6 months to 12 months later, and
yeah.
then maybe 18 months to 2 years after the standard game came out, there's like a complete edition.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
Or
and
Game of the Year edition or whatever.
exactly. And
Yeah.
like in the last 5 years, I've probably only bought maybe 3 games on release for this
Mm,
reason, because there's just no reason to pay full price for a game when 2 years later it's going to have a complete edition for like half the price.
yeah.
Unless it's something I'm really excited about, like, those 3 games would probably be Elden Ring, Hades, and then Sekiro. It's basically like, if it's a FromSoft game or a Supergiant game, I know I'm gonna get everything that needs to be there to have a great time.
Yeah.
But
Well, look, Supergiant did the same thing. They had like an early access thing where a lot of content and levels were not available to you at the start.
and so
So,
so that's like different again, right? Where you've got
yeah.
early access,
Yes.
and versus something like Star Wars Battlefront that probably should have been early access, but they decided to just release it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was talking about this yesterday with the Orb friend Jetto. Hello, Jetto. And she works where I used to work at IP2 on Puzzle Quest 3,
Oh,
and
cool.
she also does community management for Gems of War, the other free-to-play title that company works on.
Cool.
And so when Puzzle Quest 3 initially released in early access, they released it as a free-to-play game, obviously, but it was under the assumption that after early access was over, you'd be able to keep your character and any purchases that you'd made.
Oh, yep.
And on its face, that seems like quite a good idea. Like, you want to keep players that you've earned throughout the course of early access to stick around when the game goes live. And so, there's all sorts of benefits to that, right? You have like the player base. The player base has, a history in the game. They're able to onboard new players. There's all sorts of like exclusive gear and, nice items that you can give them early on to like help entice them to come in.
Right, yeah.
However, in free-to-play games like Puzzle Quest, and I'm sure other games that go into early access and have purchasable with real money items,
Mm-hmm.
you end up with a real economy problem where throughout the course of development, if you've had to, shift the value of items and currencies and introduce new things, and by the time you come out of early access and release into 1.0, all of the early access players are sort of these weird, out of shape, they're not the actual desired player by the time that the game goes live. So the game that comes out is like really cool for new players to jump on and play around with, and like the economy is perfect for them. But for all of these existing players who've been playing for like 8 or 9 months, they're like, help us, like we have we can't play the game anymore. It's broken for us because we're stuck in this like weird economy where like, all the stuff that we've earned throughout early access no longer is valuable to us, and it's hard for us to earn that new stuff because we go back and we play those levels and they're like trivially easy, so it's not fun for us. Like there's all sorts of stuff like that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really hard to manage because you're punishing people for being curious or loyal in the beginning.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
it's very weird. It's almost like I know firsthand what you're talking about because I did the same thing with the Hearthstone beta. Like
Right.
way back in the day, their systems around dust and how much cards cost to craft and all that stuff was, in beta it was changing every week, and they were getting their act together. And I might be wrong, but I seem to remember the way they handled it in classic Blizzard fashion. They were just like, if you do anything in beta, it doesn't count when we release it.
Mm. Yeah.
I seem to remember you having to start fresh,
Yes.
even though I'm pretty sure you could spend money in
Oh
the
wow.
beta to buy
Wow.
packs.
Okay, that's super Blizzard. That's very Activision.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And this happened in 2014 or 2013, so
Yeah, the
I
Wild
might,
West.
yeah, it's like I don't know if Steam had an early access thing going by then,
No, I
but
don't think they did. Yeah, it would
yeah,
have just been
right.
through Blizzard's launcher.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing as well, right? So they handled it probably slightly better because they said, okay, we're gonna wipe at a certain point. Like,
Mm.
is that what they were saying? Like, all your cards will be gone at a certain
Yeah,
point.
yeah. From
Yeah,
from memory, I think that's what happened.
and so they'd probably say to the players who'd spent real money, we're going to try and give you the equivalent of whatever resources that money had bought at the time of launching the game. Perhaps that might have been what they'd done.
Right, and that's what I was kind of leading to. That would make the most sense, right? If
Yes.
you have this, this information for people first starting in early access or beta, where it's just like, look, you can spend real money, but we're still working out the economy. So when the game launches, you're going to get the equivalent of what you've spent, or the equivalent of value for whatever items you currently have, and you'll
Yeah.
just be able to buy those items again in the new economy, or you'll just have some spending money.
Yeah, yeah, which is very tricky currency. Like
Mm.
I think the look the main problem is that you need data to supply publishers or stakeholders that this game, while in early access, once it comes out of early access, will be financially stable. Like you need
Right.
to have those numbers coming out of the early access or the beta period to be able to say like to the publishers or the stakeholders like, okay, look, this game is actually making money. We know that when we go live with a larger player base, we're going to just scale this number up basically, and then you're going to have your predictions on how much money we're going to make out of this title over the next 12 months.
Right. Yeah.
However, if you then wipe, it's like, oh well, what do you do with those players? It's kind of a bit unethical, I think, to wipe if you've got players who've spent money on digital items like
Dude,
DLC or cards or whatever it is that they no longer have access to. Yeah, it is super unethical.
totally. Especially
Yeah.
when one of the main things that draws people to Hearthstone is the card collection.
Yeah.
At least it was back then. Hearthstone has so many new modes now that are
Yeah.
so much better than that standard gameplay stuff that they were messing with to begin with.
Right. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so there's a game called Escape from Tarkov, which is technically still, I think, in early access. They're still in development.
Oh yeah.
I might have told you about it before, but
Yeah, we've talked about it on the
yep.
pod.
Oh, sick. So they have a way of doing that game that it's not a free to play game, but they have a way of monetizing it in such a way that I think is kind of cool. So when you buy the game, it's like a $60 game, right? It's a full price game.
Right.
Um, you have an option to buy like I think they call it like Heart of Darkness edition or something like that. I can't remember, some stupid name. A premium
Yeah.
version of the game where
Yeah.
you get a special container that allows you to extract more items out of raids. So in that game, when you leave a raid, you have like, it's called your Kappa case, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like 6 slots or something in there of items that you can take out. Even if you die, you bring those items out of the raid with you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like an insurance policy to be like, oh, I found this really cool item. I'll put it in my Kappa case. And then like, even if I do die in this raid, I still get to keep this dope item.
Right, I
And
see.
so the premium one comes with a larger Kappa case. I think it's got like Gamma case or something. And it's got like 12 slots. So you can keep more items from raids. It's just like an advantage of like, you know, you get to keep more things from raids. It's like an in-game thing that doesn't necessarily change how, you know, the game is balanced. It just changes like, you know, if you have enough thought while you're in a raid to like tuck an item into your case, then like you get to keep it and you get to keep more of it. And so the play experience changes a little bit.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know how I feel about that because it changes the way you progress based
Yeah.
on how much money you pay for the game.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I kind of hate that.
Yeah.
I really, especially for a game like that that has like an online competitive aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so important just to have people on the same playing field, and then if they have to monetize things after the release of the base $60 game, then it's cosmetic stuff or stuff that doesn't really impact your progression or your ability to kill other players or loot other players
Mm-hmm.
in a better way.
So yeah, it sort of does change how you play the game in a way. But the thing that game does every, I don't know how many months, every 4 or 5 months, I think it is, they wipe. So every thing that you've earned in the game, all the guns, everything except for your case that you bought with premium, you know, human dollars is
Mm-hmm.
gone. And
Really?
so
Wow.
the balance gets reset and they tweak numbers and they tweak values, and it's
Yeah.
quite an exercise because people play that game a lot. You know, they really like go out and get everything they can. They like finish all the quests, you know, like there's all sorts of stuff you do in that game, and then at a certain point it just wipes. And I would have thought that would have made people really resistant to wanting to play the game.
Yeah, it's hard because there are a couple of games like that that have so many systems that balance changes effectively have to wipe people's progress to make sense. Like
Yeah.
because they're changing the way the items they have work. Sometimes it's just not fair that there's an overpowered item that's really easy to get and they make a balance change to make it really hard to get, and then all those players just get to keep that item. Like
Yes.
that wouldn't make sense either.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and depending on how like databases are built and you know how the in like the architecture of the code is built, perhaps taking that item from those players is not trivial, and it actually
True.
is like in some cases impossible, and so you end up with like a system where you've got it's just imbalanced. So I think the main reason that they wipe Tarkov is you have, oh, I might be wrong on this, but you have players who collect a lot of really high powered gear, and then towards at a certain point they know the wipe is coming, and this is wild to me. They know the wipe is coming, and so they like outfit their characters with like the most powerful gear in the game and just go into servers and just like clean house. And so you end up with this weird like rhythm or like a tide to the game where everyone is like getting up to speed for the first couple of months and like getting all their items and finishing all their quests, and then you've got this sort of like ideal play period where everyone's sort of not using all their best gear, but they're still sort of playing fair, I guess, and raids are semi-interesting. And then you've got like the chaos of the month before wipe where like everyone's just like, fuck it, I don't care if I lose, you know, this $20 million helmet, I'm gonna take it into the raid and just never get shot in the head. Like
Yeah.
it's wild. It's such a crazy weird game.
From that perspective, I love it because
Okay.
it gives the
Come back
game
around.
it gives the game all this life.
Yeah.
Right? Because now there's this kind of beginning, middle, and end arc every 4 or 5 months as the game is brand new. And Hearthstone like has a similar thing with its Battlegrounds mode, which is like an auto chess mode.
Right. Oh, wow.
It's I really got into it last year.
Yeah.
And they patch it pretty often. And they, against all odds, I think they probably made a mistake, but it's hugely free to play. Like
Mm.
there's nothing to collect. There's 60 or 80 or there's a lot of heroes in the game, and none of them are behind paywalls or anything like that. Like it's you just get offered up a bunch of heroes each time you start a game, and it's random.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
I think Blizzard probably made a mistake, because last I saw the data for Hearthstone, I think 50% of players were playing this mode,
Yeah.
and that's likely millions and millions of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I was going to is that because they patch it pretty regularly, like probably once every 2 months, maybe every 3 months on average, there's a big patch that changes a lot of minion balance and hero balance. And it's always exciting to play in that first week because no one knows what is good anymore.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that's just like really exciting, because I guess not quite the same, but similar to Tarkov, by the end of the patch, everyone knows what minion types to go for and what heroes are the best, and it kind of makes things a little bit stale. But
Mm.
that like constant updating keeps things alive and keeps things fresh. And I think that's like an interesting parallel to DLC, where
Yeah.
it's not quite adding more story or more whatever, but it's just like it's keeping the game alive, which DLC also can do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really interesting way to look at it, right? Like a game being alive implies that a game can die. And
Well, it
for,
it can. It can. Have
yes,
you
it
heard
can.
of this shitty new Square Enix game made by the Bayonetta people?
No, what's it called?
Oh, if you type in shitty Square Enix game made by Platinum Games, it'll pop up. But like, it's just a really crap online
Oh,
co-op.
Babylon's Fall?
Yep, that's it. And it only released less than a month ago, and I think I saw a thing last week where it had 8 active players on Steam.
Oh,
It's like, and for Platinum Games are hit and miss, but their hits are pretty awesome. Like they did
yeah.
Near Automata, and
Yeah.
they've got some good shit going on in that studio. And yeah, Square Enix published it, and it's just I saw a James Stephanie Sterling video on it, and
Mm,
it looked atrocious. It looked so bad, and
yeah.
that game was barely alive before it died.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. It's so sad to see, like there's obviously reasons why this game has died the way that it has. I don't know what they are, but it's probably all to do with like the monetization and like the gameplay not actually being that good and all that sort of stuff. Like,
Yeah, yeah. And what is sad, like games can die. I think we're all fine with crappy games dying. But when you've got beautiful works of art like Titanfall 2,
mm,
it's when they die due to either lack of support from the publisher, or maybe 95% of the game is just super great, but some integral piece is missing. Like maybe the net
yeah.
code isn't as good as it could be, and
Yeah.
that's really what holds people back. I think in the case of Titanfall 2, it happened to be a poorly timed release where they released it within a week of both Call of Duty and the new
Uh,
Battlefield, and like,
yeah.
a new multiplayer FPS isn't really going to stand a chance in that
Yeah.
ecosystem at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always, in the short time that I've been in games, it seems as though there's hardly ever a good window to release your video game. Like, we're
Yeah.
always like, oh, when are we going to release this? So it's like, oh man, Call of Duty comes out a week after or a week before. It's like, oh, fuck, okay, what about next month? there's like a new blah 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 game. You know, there's always some huge. It's like the Elden Ring comes out, then it's like, oh heck, you know, like you can't release in a window leading up to or after of a certain title like Elden Ring. You know, people are hype about it. They're likely not going to buy a game before, like, or start a game before it comes out.
Yeah.
And then after the game comes out, they're obviously going to be playing it, so you can't really release in that window. So yeah, it's a there's hardly ever a good time to release a game these days, which is a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah. Did you see Tim Rogers review The Last of Us?
Yes, a while ago now though.
Right. He breaks down when is the best time to release a game specifically to win Game of the Year awards.
Yeah, he looked at like the history of whenever everyone else had released
it. Yeah. But yeah, it does seem really tricky, and it's just like the loyalty thing with video games that we've touched on before, where people buy a Call of Duty when they're growing up, and then for some reason they just buy a Call of Duty every year, and you know, the light of stars are dying in their eyes, but they don't notice, and they just keep buying the same game. And it's just like, not because like they're excited for it, but just because they've done that every year, and like,
it
it
becomes a habit,
a tradition. Yeah.
That's a really it's a really bizarre behavior pattern that I don't fully grasp, but I'm sure people who release, you know, like big publisher, multi-billion-dollar conglomerates really have a firm understanding of and have reasons as to, you know, exactly when they release games and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, so we've sort of brushed on a couple of different things as we've been going. You know, there's like positive kinds of DLC, like story DLC, you know, Left Behind, and what was the example that you mentioned? Yeah, the
Evil Within, The Witcher 3.
Yeah, Witcher 3, which some are paid, you know, like Witcher 3, Hearts of Stone, and the other one, Blood and Wine.
Oh, dude.
Paid.
When Heart of Stone came out, sorry to interrupt you, but I just feel like I've got to get this out. When Hearts of Stone came out, I was so, you know, I was like a pro gamer. I played so many new games back in 2015, and when that DLC came out and it was that good, I remember just being like, this is the most pristine piece of playable media on the planet.
I remember you saying this.
Yeah, I was just like, nothing is gonna be better than this for ages. And it reminded me of my friend who saw Moonlight, the movie, which I still haven't seen, but I'm really excited for. And Moonlight won Best Picture at the Oscars that year. That was 2016. And I asked him, you know, what he thought of it, and he said, look, Moonlight was so good that it should win the Best Picture at the Oscars every year until a better film is made. And I was like, that's some hyperbolic bullshit, but that is exactly how I felt about Heart of Stone.
Yeah. Yeah, Heart of Stone was fantastic. It really was. I'm so pumped for Tim Rogers' review of Witcher 3. I can't wait.
Oh, is he gonna do it?
Yeah, he's gonna do Witcher 3, and he's gonna do Dark Souls too.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Very pumped.
I'm very pumped for him, like, because he just, you know, he goes through everything with a fine-tooth comb. There's so much broken shit in the first Dark Souls. I'm looking forward to him calling it all out. Because like it's one of my favorite games, but man, that game has a lot of whack-ass stuff going on that is unfinished.
Yeah, for sure. Like I was saying, there's those kind of story DLCs, and then there's games that have like specific story point DLCs, or like Dead Cells, where like you play through the game and then you can't like find the DLC, like No Man's Sky.
Yeah, Hollow Knight.
May not even be apparent that it is Hollow Knight. Yeah, I should do that. And then there's also like games as a service, or games that release unfinished and have like their full price games. Maybe there's a distinction to be made. So like full price games that release with not all of the content, and then have a content roadmap, which is often there's paid parts of that as well. You know, they release paid characters or skins or whatever. So it's
Hmm.
like super predatory and weird that they release it as a full price game. And then there's games as a service, which is typically free to play games that have paid either pay to win or pay to play or pay for cosmetics or whatever it is. Some mix and match version of those versions of DLC.
Yeah, and you've also got the games that started out as one and ended in the other,
Oh yeah.
Evolve. Evolve
Mm.
was like
Oh,
uh,
I'm so sad for Evolve.
fully priced game with
Yeah.
this roadmap of paid DLC, and
Yeah.
then it just had this. Well, I was gonna say fall from grace, but I think it had
Never
to.
was it Grace.
Exactly. It was never blessed to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they just were like, it's free to play now. And
Yeah.
and
I can take it out back and put the shotgun right between its eyes. It's free to play now, guys. Ugh.
oh yeah.
What was
Yeah.
that? There was like an Overwatch competitor that came out around almost the exact same time. It's called like
Oh yeah.
Blood something. I can't
Ba
remember. No.
Battleborn?
Battleborn? Yeah, I think
Battleborn?
you're right. Battleborn.
Yeah.
Battleborn. Yeah, sure.
I know the game you're talking about anyway.
Yeah. I can see like the front cover. There was like a dude with a big hat. And that game had a similar kind of thing. It was like, oh, it's like a price pointed game. There's gonna be here's a roadmap, and then Overwatch happened to it. Like Blizzard did their thing,
Hmm.
and at a certain point they were like, yeah, it's free to play now. And then it was like, yeah, it's so the servers are gone. Sorry guys. Like it just, oh god. It's very, very sad. And yeah, I've spoken with devs and heard chats with devs that have worked on Evolve,
Hmm.
and yeah, for the most part, they all knew what was happening. They were
Oh, really?
inside the submarine as it was shooting itself in the face. Like,
Right.
yeah,
Right. So,
they could see the content plan and just be like, oh, this is not like there's not enough here.
oh shit. Yeah,
Yeah,
God, that feeling of sitting on a sinking ship
yeah,
and you've
yeah,
just poured the last 3 years into it.
yeah. Which
So,
is weird because I had that on when I was working on that mobile game Agree as well. Like
oh yeah.
everyone kind of just knew. I mean, towards the end, it sort of came together a little bit, which was so strange because that was the point that it got cancelled when it finally looked like it was going to be a game.
Oh, dude,
Like,
that was so sad.
yeah, it was a time. Anyway, sorry to cut you off. What were you saying?
I wanted to ask what you think the deal is with free DLC being more common with indie games. So Hollow Knight, Slay the Spire, like all these games have DLC that they've just slotted in after release. And sometimes, for Slay the Spire, they added the Watcher, I think it's called, that fourth
Mm-hmm.
playable character. And
Right.
that's a whole other character with a whole new set of cards and all this balancing to do. And they did it for free.
Yeah, right.
And like with Hollow Knight, there's I can't remember what it's called, but like it's this circus DLC where like this circus of bugs come to town, and there's like heaps of new bugs and new bosses and new music, and it was just free. They didn't ask
Yeah,
any money for it. Like if you bought the game after the DLC, then it was there, and if you bought it before, it was a free download. And
yeah.
it's just weird to me that DLC like this is of such a high quality and they're not
It's
charging
free.
for it. Like, do you know why that might be?
I don't know for sure. But while you were speaking, then I kind of first principled my way to some kind of conclusion.
All right,
Um,
let's hear it.
so typically with AAA development, the development cycles are extremely expensive. So you've got these huge teams of people and executives and higher ups that are taking these massive salaries, and
Right.
the game needs to be extremely profitable before it turns any kind of any kind of benefit for the people publishing it.
Mhm.
And the whole point of that cycle being so awful is that you end up with sequels and franchises. You end up with like a Call
Right.
of Duty franchise, and that it becomes the only way they're able to turn a profit is to like put their hooks into the children and hope that the sequels ride them into the sunset in their retirement funds. Like that's kind of the goal, right? And so
Right.
the DLCs end up being paid because it's another way to milk money from an existing property out of the player.
Mm-hmm.
And the loyalty there is like another, sort of hook in the I don't know what to call it, in the machine. However, with indie teams, development cycles tend to be a lot less expensive for publishers, or indie teams that have publishers, I guess. I can't speak for Hollow Knight. I can't remember if we found out if they have a publisher or not, but I think they have some funding, someone helping pay their salary. I don't know. Can't remember.
Yeah, I did find out, by the way, that
yeah.
they sold millions of copies. So like
Okay.
it didn't.
So they have some money.
Yeah. They sold like 3 million plus by 2020.
Okay. Either way, if they sold a lot or they have a publisher, paying their rent, the development costs are so low in comparison that you actually probably end up making more as a publisher on free DLC, because it brings in new players to the game, so you get that initial buy-in again.
Right.
And there's just no overhead. You just get to keep paying the team of indies to keep making stuff for the game that's already successful. Like,
right. I see.
it's not. It doesn't cost much.
Right. So
Comparison.
it's really just a privilege thing then, that these games did well enough when they initially came out without it. I suppose that goes for just about any property. Like, it did well enough, and then that's opened up the scope so they can be like, yeah, rather than develop something new or something else, or a sequel, we're actually just going to develop on top of what we've already done.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
And I think just because indie, like you pointed out, why is it indies? I think for money, like the size of the teams, and you don't have to pay. Like, imagine it, like you're a publisher and you're paying the office rent for this, downtown LA place for a AAA studio. It's going to be squillions of dollars, plus on top of salaries and all sorts of overheads. Whereas if you've got an indie studio like the one that I work at, which is like, 12 people or something like that in this little office in the CBD, it's like, or potentially elsewhere, it doesn't have to be central. Like, there's all sorts of people who work remote now for indie teams, and so just the costs are just exponentially lower. So you could just be like, just keep making it, like we'll keep supporting you. Just do this DLC, and you guys had fun making that game, so keep doing what you're doing, and we'll keep paying you. Like the money will just keep rolling in.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh well, I'm very glad for your experience. That was a great answer.
Yeah, I think that, again, that just based off first principles, like I don't really actually know. There's probably some other, if we were to interview someone who had worked on a DLC in a higher up position, or a publisher, even someone who like made a deal with a studio to make DLC, they would surely have incredible insights to answer that question. That's just what I guess.
Yeah. So before we jump into Joe's good news, what's been your favorite DLC?
Oh. I love there's this like thing that happens at the end of these episodes where you like ask me a question that's probably on the list that I just missed. And it blindsides me every time. My favorite DLC. Oh, I forgot to mention, I got the horse armor as a kid. Like, I was one of those people that bought horse armor from Skyrim. Not Skyrim. Yeah, Skyrim. No.
Oblivion.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that was such a waste of money. It was like $12 or whatever. It was just a cosmetic item for your horse. It did nothing. It didn't look that good.
Yeah. Well, we didn't really spend much time going into like how DLC started and like the first kind of DLC, but I imagine it would be some shit like The Sims. I remember The Sims just making bank on like clothing DLC, pet DLC, kitchen appliance DLC, like, oh my god, they just had so much superfluous shit that they would throw onto those games.
I wonder how well The Sims did for EA, like what the numbers are, because surely it's bonkers.
Oh, it's got to be bonkers. Like, I remember like The Sims 2 was just on every computer I ever used in that era.
Just crazy to think about.
Yeah.
So favorite DLC. I mean, Witcher's pretty hard to go past the Hearts of Stone. I think that's right up there.
Yeah.
I did really like Left Behind. I thought that was a really nice, like they actually evolved the combat a little bit in Left Behind and played with some ideas that they didn't play with in the original.
Yep.
Let me just do a quick Google for DLC. And while I do, what about you? What's your favorite DLC?
Oh man, I think it's got to be Dark Souls 3.
Mm.
And shout out to the Bloodborne DLC. That is exceptionally
It's
good
good.
as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
But the Dark Souls 3 DLC, it was just kind of also the way they introduced it. Like the DLC in FromSoft games can be a bit weird. Like finding the DLC in the first Dark Souls without you knowing exactly what to do may not happen. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't have found it without looking up how to access it, and
Yeah.
that is interesting, but it's also kind of whack. Whereas in Dark Souls 3, it's incredibly hard to miss, and the when you beat the first part of the DLC, the second part is it just follows on. It's not like in a
Right.
completely different area, which is something that they've done in the past.
Yeah.
And like the boss fights and the environments, like it's just man, it's just some of the best FromSoft stuff money has to buy. It's so good.
Did you play? I remember you playing, but I didn't realize it was part of the Bioshock Infinite DLC. But you go back to
Oh,
Rapture.
as Elizabeth, yeah, that's
Yeah.
great DLC.
Yeah. Cool. I'm
Yeah,
just looking at a list of like top 20 DLCs from video games, and a lot of these I don't know. Fallout New Vegas. I feel like we're remiss to not mention it, even though I haven't played it. Apparently, it's
yeah,
quite good.
I haven't played it either.
Yeah. They got Bloodborne on here, Borderlands 2, Oblivion. Yeah, there's Witcher. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Um,
think in general, I'm the best DLC is like big fat swathes of content. Like the Witcher 3 or FromSoft games. Like
yeah.
I really appreciate the indie stuff, and like the Dead Cells DLC is really good, but
Mm,
man, when a game adds like new story and it's basically like a whole nother game, but you already have played that game and it's just more of what you love. And
yeah.
so I think that's what I'm about.
Yeah. From like a developer perspective, the idea of finishing a game and then not being aware of, but being told later on that there's like you've got to keep working on it is terrifying to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because like once you know as development wears on, you sort of hit this point that's like about 2 years in, or like a year approximately, depending on what kind of project it is, where you're like, I'm so done with this fucking thing. Like you're ready to
Mm,
move on with your life.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
like I can imagine releasing, which I've done before, and you're like, oh, it's such a relief. I don't have to do this anymore, really.
Hmm.
Um, and then it comes back around again. It's like the people want more, and you're just like, oh no, not more.
You're never really free.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a bit scary. But look, if it was a fun game to work on, and the content is good, and you just get to keep working on it, then that sounds like fun. But I can imagine just being so burnt out on a title, going back around for another run. Just sounds terrible.
Oh my god.
Cool, man. Are you ready for some fast news?
I'm ready for some fast news, and unless you've got it in there, I've also got a cute update to one of the pieces of news from last week.
Oh hell yeah! Hit me with that one first.
All right. So our good friend Let Me Solo Her.
Yes.
So that person has been out there slapping Melania to death over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
There's a new challenger has entered the ring, and this person is called Let Her Solo Me, and they dress in exactly the same way, and they enter the boss arena and gesture for the host to sit down, and then they just go and get destroyed by her.
Wow, amazing!
Yeah.
Truly. Just every iteration of madness possible this game brings out in people. I'm so in awe of this community.
Yeah, love that. Anyway, sorry, let's hear the real stuff.
I love as well that it could be like misread. It's like, oh, I finally got that guy.
Oh,
And then you like look closer and you're like, oh no.
I think that's exactly what's going
Yeah.
on. Like I would 100% do that. Just
Yeah.
having known about Let Me Solo Her, I'd almost just see the naked person with the pot and be like,
Yeah.
oh my god, let's go.
Yeah. That's very good. So the news is pretty threadbare this week. I was looking around during the week for things to save as news, and nothing was really coming up.
Right, okay.
There is one piece of news which is related to what we were talking about at the end of the last episode, and that is Netflix animation department has taken quite a hit amid a share price plummet.
Oh.
And so, yeah, they've had to shutter and close down several projects at Netflix Animation, some of which were quite high profile. There was like a Roald Dahl TV show or movie that was animated and looked quite interesting, and a couple of others. And yeah, so they've let go like executives from that part of the department that you know obviously means that those shows are closing or they're moving those stuff around.
No shit.
So yeah, there's been quite a hit, and I think it comes amid share price. No, it wasn't just the share price. It was the new figures that the subscribers were dropping quite substantially for the first time since Netflix's inception. And so, yeah, I think unfortunately, animation, as always, seems to be the first to go.
Yeah. Oh man, that
a shame.
That sucks, and it's come year after year. Netflix has just had obscene budgets for their overall development of new content. Like,
Yes.
I remember a couple of years ago, like in, I want to say 2018 or 2019, like their budget for new content was $7 billion. Like
Wow.
it was huge. And now when I trawl through all of the new content they put on there, like the Netflix symbol is on so many of them, you know?
Yeah.
Like I feel like they are producing a lot, but yeah, that's crazy that like a whole subset of their content creation is taking a dive.
There's this tweet that I saved. I took a screenshot of by at Nailhead Party, who says maybe Netflix is losing money because it was sold to us as a replacement for Blockbuster, but really it's the equivalent of going to Blockbuster and they don't actually have any movies to rent. But you can watch the Blockbuster staff acting in a play they've written if you like.
Savage.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, you know what? Like you just said, there's so many on there that have like the Netflix symbol, and I was like, yeah, all of this stuff is produced in house, and anyway, not in house, but whatever.
Yeah.
So that's part one of the news, and now I'm fumbling because I can't remember what I made for part two of news. Oh, New Guys came out yesterday, I think. Oh, not New Guys, sorry, Bad Guys, which is
Bad Guys.
Yeah, an animated film. This week isn't video game news; it's all animation related news.
Yeah,
welcome to Joe's Animation Podcast.
I'm here for it.
Yeah,
Bad Guys. Tell me about Bad Guys.
So it is a beautifully animated looking movie by Sony Pictures, I believe.
Okay.
And it has a really cool style that looks sort of more 2D-ish. I'll try and put a picture or something in the podcast description if you want to go check it out.
Cool.
Yeah, it's based on a book by the dude who did Captain Underpants. What's his name?
Oh, yeah. I remember the cover for that movie.
Yeah. And I think that's all I've got for quick news this week. Only 2 pieces of animation news. Not much, you know? Yeah. Unless we want to talk about like, you know, indie game or like games that are coming out on platforms, which, you know, I don't really count that as news. It's just like stuff is coming out. That's normal.
Yeah. Oh well, I get to eat my own words here. There is a game coming out next week that I've been waiting for. Rogue Lords is finally coming out on the Switch.
Rogue Lords,
and it's just it's God, it's kind of like Slay the Spire meets Divinity meets that game that was excruciatingly hard, but it had a great atmosphere. Indie game. It was about
Darkest Dungeon.
Yeah, it's like Slay the Spire meets Darkest Dungeon.
Yeah, cool. It looks like something you would enjoy.
Yeah, it's just it's just got artifacts and skills, and that's all. I need, and a deck.
Yeah, give this man a deck and he will play for hours.
Yeah.
There actually is, I think, another piece of news that I forgot. Blizzard, Diablo. They released a mobile Diablo game.
What? Okay. Aren't they supposed to be busy working on Diablo 4?
Diablo 4 gets a new update. Yeah, Blizzard 2. Sorry, Diablo 2 Resurrected. No, that's not it. I can't even find the bloody name of it. Look how professional this news segment is. Yeah, I saw this morning that they were releasing a mobile game version of Diablo, and it just reminded me of playing Diablo with you and Nina and Phoebe and everyone. Like that was a good time.
Yeah. Diablo 3 times were really good. Although I don't know if I was just completely oblivious the first time I played through that game, but I tried replaying it a couple of years ago, and the consequences for dying are shit. Like,
oh yeah, you don't lose anything, right? You lose some gold.
I can't. You might lose a bit of gold, but you lose armor durability.
Oh.
And I was like, are you serious? Like, this game has no stakes now. And like, I just immediately stopped playing. And I don't know why I didn't realize that before then, but yeah, I thought that was very strange.
When we were playing, that game wasn't about living or dying, you know, it was just like finding the next cool piece of gear that scaled well. Like that was the fun part.
That's true. It was fun regardless.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it, man. That's all I got for you.
That's it, baby. All right, well, I hope everyone has a really good weekend, and we'll catch you next time it's almost the weekend.
Yeah, put a bow on it.
Bye. Bye.